Still, we almost have 200 people here. They are coming back. Thank you very much for working so the room. Before we have the debriefing of the breakout sessions, means each rapporteur gets 3 minutes, and after 3 minutes you will hear a bird sound. If you don't hear the bird sound, but I hear it, you will hear this little sound of this old ting-a-ling-a-ling. That time is up. And to keep the time, we decided that afterwards we only keep the Q&A questions in the frame. I would ask you, because the chat is exploding with all this information, maybe to drop your Q&A to the lab number, or to the person you want to best is the lab number, in the F&A section, question and answers below this Zoom window. And I try, because I don't know how much pops up, I try to gather them. Let's see how far we get, because you are really like a waterfall. Before doing and starting with the process, I would like to see the word cloud for a last minute, which we created on Menti. This is menti.com. And we can share the window now. Janja will share the window. It's menti.com, and you can use the 25422178 as a code. If you still want, approach and change is in the middle. If you still want to add something for the very last minute, because we are closing this word cloud in a minute, and we will derive 10 keywords out of it and bring them back as a poll at the end of this very session to you. So thank you very much. And if you don't put anything anymore inside, I'm very happy now to hand over the microphone for lab number 1. And I was really amazed that we had a lot of people gathering in each lab. This is Jörn Mortensen, and the subject was inventing through everyday making. So we are looking forward to your input.
Thank you, Andrea. The key outtake, because I was challenged to bring up the key outtake from the session. And the key outtake is that practice-driven research is undertaken in all art practice disciplines and achieves its results both within those disciplines, as well as often in a transdisciplinary setting, combining practice-driven research methods with the methods from other applied research traditions. So through topics and problems stemming from and relevant to art, design, architecture, practice-based research addresses key issues of a broader cultural, social, and economic significance, which is important now. And as such, research through artistic, architectural, and design practice is progressive in terms of methodology and dissemination formats, and this is very important for us. From the discussions in the sessions, we are convinced that practice-driven research in art, architecture, and design will bring inventions and innovations in the contemporary emergent situation we're facing. through an epistemic inquiry directed towards increasing knowledge, insights, understanding, and skills and participation. Practice-based research in the arts research explores territories unfamiliar to other kinds of research. So the message from us is clear. The new European Bauhaus initiative must take advantage of this inclusive and research-driven creativity. I'd like to just share screen for a few seconds to show some of the energy that was embedded in our discussions. Here it is. As you'll see, we tried to answer some of the questions. We had 4 fantastic introductions, and we responded. The participants responded to the different introductions, and we used that as a platform for our discussions. I can share this Padlet outtake for those of you interested. And the key response from the participants was that we need to secure funding for artistic research and research-driven activities in the further process. We need to embed invitations to playfulness in that further process, and the initiatives must happen locally and they must work in a long-term perspective. Finding a common language and common objectives should be seen as a process. And I would like to remind everyone that practice-driven research is a gift, both in terms of its capacity to explore specific subject matters, but also because of its methodological plus side. I'll say. I think that's pretty much 3 minutes. I think I'll stick to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In case our audience has any questions to you, feel free to put them in the question and answer section. And maybe one very last question to all of you, and maybe also to you. So in the intersection mode between inclusivity, aesthetics, and sustainability, was that also a subject? Could you maybe answer 1 or 2 sentences to this, how to think it together?
Absolutely, it was, because we challenged ourselves on the question how to involve community, how to involve produce participation, and it is an emerging challenge for all artistic practices. But the vibe and the response is there. So we had some concrete examples as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Thanks to all your group. And we head over to lab number 2 for sharing. So some of the groups, as you just see, they will share their boards or share their visuals or anything like that. It's Roberto Cavallo, but he just said my video.
Yes, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. Okay. It's resolved. Okay. So thanks a lot, Andrea. Thanks for everybody. Our lab 2 was about life-wide learning in arts, architecture, and engineering. It's about the value that education in arts and engineering and architecture has for our development and well-being. It's about also inclusive practices that demand reconsideration, not only of access to education opportunities, but also how and at what stages in life that can be done. So lifelong as well as life-wide learning. Participants at our sessions were academics and professionals. Based on a role-play Miro board that we'll show in a minute, we've been sharing thoughts and ideas and about what could be cutting edge nowadays in lifelong and life-wide learning, given the 3 pillars of the new European Bauhaus: aesthetic, inclusivity, and sustainability. The first point was about sharing experiences, starting with sharing the ways we see things. STEAM open stand approach can be useful for that, but there is a need of specific projects where the different ages and groups can be brought together. While doing that, Janja will show you the Miro board that will be compiling all together. You can see the results. Many thoughts and ideas came about. Another important point was about educating educators becoming learners and focus on learners. And on the way they see things and they look at the world, and professionals a lot can be let's say the transition through which learners, educators, and professionals can be brought together. It is about creating the conditions to stimulate these interactions, and while doing so, we shouldn't forget about the ludic aspect. So playing and the play as a central element that could, let's say, put together all these different ages even learners outside the academia. And ultimately, we need to allow the shift from knowledge, competences, for instance, the one provided by end terms or professional instance, towards disposition, attitude, and approach. Thanks a lot for listening to me and to us, and thanks to all participants of Lab number 2. We have a fantastic array of suggestions there that we will share with you from the Miro board.
Fantastic, Roberto. 30 seconds to go. Therefore, one question from my part. Somebody wants to know, is it possible to get a link to the Miro board of yours?
Well, it is possible. We have the Miro board, so we can share it with the organization. Okay. I don't know if we can put it in a chat, but that.
Okay, we check that.
We have the results, so we can share.
Very last question, 10 seconds. Did you talk a lot about the change within, for example, higher education, or did you talk a lot about how, for example, higher education and non-formal education also should cooperate together? So what content-wise, in which direction should change go?
I think both aspects that you've been naming are both important. There are changes that have to take place in higher education, but also there is very much a need of creating opportunities to be linking with all the other stakeholders and parties that ultimately all together we work out there. So that's ultimately the place that we should focus on, and the citizens, which are all of us. So, but let's say the suggestions were all going around these two issues that you named. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Roberto, and thanks to your group. We fly over to lab number 3, Sophia Meres and Ben Stringer. Uncommon ground was and is the subject. Here we go. Rural areas in the center. I hand over the microphone to you, whoever starts.
Can you hear me now? Do you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Okay. Yeah, we had a really good discussion. Our session was all about the NEB's possible relationship with rural territories and rural communities. And it's very difficult to summarize, but I've got 5 points out of the hundreds that we discussed. But so the first one is the importance of working with the small scale and to understand, for example, villages and small scale farms as key to the future and not just the past, and to work especially with small scale enterprises, because in general, one can argue they're better for biodiversity, better for local consumption, and better for the planet in general. The second point was understanding the importance, understanding the rural territories as spaces of production and not just as spaces of consumption. So we need to think of them from the point of view of people who make stuff and who create stuff and provide us with all our goods and services, and not just as spaces to go on holiday. So, but also importantly, to find a balance between those two perspectives, as it were, to find a useful symbiosis between those two realms. So the third point allied to that is to align concepts of beauty in rural terrains with functionality, with biodiversity and cultural diversity, and especially inclusivity. So to understand that the demographics of certain parts of Europe are changing, and that we need to embrace that cultural change as well. So the fourth point was to agree with that word board and that word holistic, but in particular to understand cities in a much more holistic sense, that in a way that includes the countryside and doesn't really understand them as being two separate realms, but really all of a piece as one kind of overarching system. And the fifth point was really to agree with the previous speaker that research should really underpin any kind of design thinking. We think that quite often we don't know enough about what's out there in rural territories, and we need to learn more about this before making decisions about its future. And that's it, Andrea. That's
fantastic. Fantastic. Also, 20 seconds to go. Ben, one question. Was it in common ground when I sneaked in? For example, there were maps how tourism infects in a positive way, also rural development and not ecotourism, but eco-development, etc. So it would be very interesting if anything of what you are sharing in your workshops, if you think there's a certain best practice or a project or some slides or anything like that, please put it into the chat. I've heard, for example, from Zentralwerk, from Maltfabriken, and all these kind of best practices. If you have anything, please put it in the chat that we can watch it up. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We come back with questions later in Q&A, and we now fly over to Karin Helms and Indra Pers. It is now seeing the city as a landscape. And I think they are also sharing something. Thank you very much, Ben. Okay. We travel to the next participant. Yes.
Yes, please.
Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us the voice. We were pleased in the precedent lab to also be IFLA Europe participate with Arena and with Alta Rural, because we think that it is through all scales that we have to intervene, not only in the cities, but in the rural, in the leftover areas. And we have in our session been so pleased to see initiative who has been done by locals or by collectives without any initial programs. We saw visions through a landscape project that can reveal and create sustainable, beautiful and together projects. And that is through a holistic approach. We had an intervention of our colleague Ursula Fossek-Braseniec, who tried to show what can a landscape architect profession bring in this process in the new European Bauhaus initiative, and in general in the Green Deal project. And she made it a comparison to a tree. A tree is growing. We hope that all these projects are growing, not only above, but also in the roots and extend. We had examples from, as I said, from self-initiative projects of the initiative of Girona, where the nearby leftover areas, how can then they become new type of public spaces who are not static as the inner parks or historical parks, but give another type of parks for the locals, where they can also act. He used the observation that COVID-19, the pandemic period, showed us that there's a need of more spaces for everybody to express, to gathering, to be together. And he even used the wording as a virus. This type of spaces can explode at the outgrid of our towns. The reaction was that from our chat that this is another aesthetic, but it is beautiful. The edge of the city can be seen as much bigger than it is today if we include all the leftover areas. It ended with some projects where we can see this type of surrounded landscapes. In the city of Strasbourg, we understood how they have been doing initiatives through a large project at a geography level. Find again our natural geography, our River Rhine, and go down through a scale down to the land, trying to find in our ports and under our asphalt, our concrete, the fertile land as a mode of bringing up more fertility and to enroute the new future inhabitant into the local. This type of project has also many reactions. Oh, and I will go quick. one was maybe the most beautiful. It is we need to imagine how to see the unseen air, the atmosphere. We have to design also what is not visible, the atmosphere, the feeling of air. Indra Peirce showed us about evaporation and how we can maybe have a more playful for our kids of tomorrow. So thank you so much for this intervention and sharing our experience also from a landscape point of view.
Thank you very much. Thanks to your great group. Thank you. We'll come back with questions maybe. And we go over to lab number 5, which is or has been also Clarissa Romberg as a host. And it's talking about pragmatic alliances such as craft, earth, and timber.
Hey, Andrea, thank you. So in our session together with Anna Herring and I, we discussed this very broad question of how can architecture support the Green Deal by having a closer look at a very natural material as earth, always in combination with timber or bamboo, and showing them as alternative. I'm quickly sharing my screen here. And we think, or we discussed this question, how can we bring this alternative building material earth on the agenda for the new European Bauhaus Call, as in our understanding, the material earth is completely in line with the Green Deal, with its 100% recyclability. So you can use the material time after time in a circular way. And by showing various examples which are already existing from the rammed earth construction, and by the way, we're sitting right now at the moment in this house here by Martin Rauch, which is completely built out of earth, but we have to join forces material-wise, so we think it's a perfect combination, earth combining with wood and timber structure or bamboo in a more international setting, but also know-how-wise, so integrating the notion of the craftsmanship, which is highly visible in the region where we're sitting in the region of Vorarlberg. Also, Josef Mattes mentioned the building culture here. And in the session, we proposed several new interpretations of the well-known slogan, of course, form follows function, and how we can adapt it for the 21st century, and providing some hypotheses where also the participants could share their thoughts about it. So about form follows function. And one is what we discussed here is definitely that earth needs some trust, still has challenges as it still needs trust. And also, how can this know-how be scaled up, but also kind of the missing lobby, which we're facing at the moment. But also form follows craft, so the power of the making and taking on responsibility with our hands and minds is the same for the whole building process. And also, was very important for us, also form follows collaboration. So we can't not drive change alone, but together we are stronger. And how we integrate also various stakeholders within the process.
Yeah, we also had the new voices coming in. Our students were sharing some images about, how a new European Bauhaus could look like, taking advantage of existing resources such as like an old factory in the city of Dornbirn, and everything that comes in new would have been like natural building materials such as rammed earth and timber. Yeah, form follows what? There are a lot of good looking and functional buildings all around, but what we need now is a meaningful architecture, a beautiful one. And I don't know about you, but for me personally, beauty is a formal expression of love. And when we do things out of love towards the planet, towards the resources, towards people, it's so we propose that the new mantra for a new way of building, not just in Europe, but also globally, because we are all connected, is form follows love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your love of all the participants brought into that group. I don't know how you feel. I think we all now want to travel to the smell of Vorarlberg, so to the smell of the material. Thank you very, very, very much. I go over it now from you to Georg Pendel to lab number 6. And now we deep dive into the quality question, common good, quality in built environment. And also they have a slide to share.
Thank you. let's see, should be this one. We started with a word cloud, and I just let this picture stand there. Quality in the built environment, what is it? How can you define? Is it not the right word? How can you just describe it? How can you? We had it's an old discussion, and we also said that we won't invent the wheel again. So there is good work done already, like the Davos quality system. It's a kind of a follow-up of the Davos declaration. I just mentioned these terms which we have found there, and where we might add this and that. So there is, number one is governance, and it's mainly related to quality-orientated and place-specific processes led by skilled actors, like whatsoever procedures, mainly also architectural design competitions, especially the public procurement. And there we come to the public procurement, which was also mentioned by the President von der Leyen in her initial speech, that public procurement has impact on reality on the ground. So there is something to tackle. Number two, functionality, quite clear. Everything in the built environment has to function. That's a basic need. Environment means especially support of local production, avoiding traffic, avoiding crazy transportation of building material, and using durable construction, as we just heard from the group before us. Economy, and we all agreed that there has to be added strongly affordability. That's a core issue. It does not help when we have a wonderful or even more wonderful Bauhouses and it's a kind of a luxus niche. It has to be a thing for everybody. That's a very clear thing. And this is also related to the fact that, in my personal view, affordable housing is a human right, and it's not. It has not to be handed over only to business. We have also, and we have to see, we have different countries in Europe, and there is a difference north-south. We have energetic poverty. We have real poverty still in Europe. This has to do with inclusiveness, with affordability. And it's a thing which we have to keep in mind when we discuss about quality in the built environment. Diversity, very clear, not very strict one line, but having diversity, all variants of quality possible. And then we have context, which has to do, and now I'm coming to the last 3 points, which are a bit different, because mostly everything until there can be counted, is countable, which is lawyers makes this happy because they like to have points and counting and clear pictures. And now we get to the last 3, they are not that easy to be counted, like contextuality. This has to do with embracing cultural heritage and contemporary creation. We should always look to the neighbor. We should always have a dialogue with the neighbor, not only by speaking, but also by our building. And this has also to do with, I happily heard that the President von der Leyen mentioned demolition only as an exceptional case. I would say this is double underlined. This would be a new kind of a starting point to discuss, not only demolishing buildings. Also the video in the coffee break in the morning showed it in a very nice way. They started with a real bottom-up thing, these guys, and now it is a splendid and priced project in the window of the city. Sense of place, very important, has to do with contextuality. And at the end, but not least, it's beauty. And how do we assess these non-countable things? There are systems, there are peer systems, there are juries, there are citizens committees who can be involved. There are collective evaluation systems. I think this is somehow the key. We need an ethical basis. We need ethical basic standards agreed all together, which can then be adapted in every certain task.
Thank you, Georg.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very. The birds. I'm always listening for the birds where they come, but they are not hearable. So I tried it with my
window.
No, the birds from the technique.
Yeah, no.
Okay, Georg, thank you very much. there's really, it's striking because I want to come back to two questions later to all of you, if there are not other questions popping up, to public procurement and affordability. I didn't deep dive there very much in this panel before, but I would like to come back to you as the rapporteurs later to these two subjects, for sure. Thank you. Lab number 7, Angèle Reinders. Angèle Reinders, and now the topic is solar cities with solar mobility.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I have a short share about our session, which was very nice and engaging. So what's the topic here? So if you live in a city, people always have to go somewhere and they have to be transported. And there's a lot of ways to get there, but most of the ways are not sustainable. So we want to propose that cities will be powered by solar energy and mobility as well. And what is this solar mobility actually? It's products that use solar energy to go from A to B. And these can be cars, they can be charging stations, they can be buildings as well. And here I show some examples. So this was our program. We had 4 presentations and thereafter a very engaging discussion with the audience and the speakers. And I noticed there was quite some enthusiasm to discuss this. And the results are represented in these 2 slides. And what I found really intriguing in our discussion is that we all noticed that energy and sustainable energy are well embedded in the consciousness of the European population. And that's also a good starting point for this sort of developments. But so far, this sort of problems have been approached at an individual level. It's not a solution because it's just at unique, very localized manners. And I think collective approaches, and everybody in the group agreed with that, collective approaches with sharing would be more effective. But then regulations are required and they're not existing, not that much. So we hope that new energy can be promoted by the new European Bauhaus, which can maybe set a standard for whole Europe that can help the work of architects, city designers, and also stimulate better development of infrastructural resources. And affordability is the big issue here. Costs come up in all cases, but sustainability should be promoted also our income group society. So this whole concept, this standard, should be accessible to these groups as well. It's utterly important because otherwise nothing will happen. This is strange. I missed a slide, but that's not a problem. Because I can continue talking. The problem is that sustainability is not constrained to the boundaries of the city, and the city also has impacts on other places. Like, for instance, if you want to use materials in buildings or in mobility that have to be extracted, for instance, in China or in some places in Germany, for which reason the landscapes get destroyed. So we have to take that into account and design of sustainable cities that the externalities won't be damaging. And that's what I call good design. And then further, the last point is that it might help to develop showcases like demonstrators. Maybe some parts of a city can be renovated in this way and show to citizens, but also other stakeholders, that this works, that can be designed in a sustainable and beautiful and affordable way, which will actually convince future architects and city planners to continue in that way.
Thank you very much. Great summary. I imagine houses moving with solar energy to bring housing and mobility together through solar. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We go to lab number 8. Eugen Panescu will thrive on the question of adaptive reuse.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me? I start my own timer because I don't hear the birdies as well.
I love it. Thank you.
Our lab took on the overlapping of many layers of culture, economical, society. Basically, that communication can allow us all to co-discover the purpose and sense of a place. The influence and evolution of buildings, cities, and landscape is done through culture, education, and memory. We had 4 outstanding examples of ways that our common inheritance is treated in the highest level of duty and responsibility, not as a gift, but as an obligation somehow to our society. First of all, we had an Oppenheim house in Wrocław that as an art center is a little bit more than that. Not only exhibiting works of art, but hosting artists and bringing education by practice as a normal way of doing things. Then the second example we had was a former mine on Menorca that since 30 years has been transformed from a quarry, then a rubble place to a place of art, showing how wounds of landscapes, but also cities can be healed through good practice. Then the third example that we had was a Zentralwerk in Dresden that was a very clear example, especially by speech as well, of Elisabeth Wolf-Wertner, that shared ownership and financial burden in a way and personal struggle is worth when you have a outstanding place that allows, for example, art to become purposeless again, and then to give the power back to the people in a way that normal ways of dealing even heritage is not common anymore. And then the last example, which includes in fact from Slovakia, from Stanica, and Robert Blavko has shown us for a former railway station as modest heritage, I'm dare to say, has become a best proof of value when it's transformed and kept in place and filled with other purpose. Of course, the financial burden to renovate and the personal burden was another topic as well, again. Then a space under a bridge became from an empty place and unused space a radical sustainable architecture with a budget that less than 10 iPhones, and then in the end a synagogue which was restored. Okay, this was basically the subject that we had, and my graphics behind me is actually the way I put in a few words, something that you can see all the time in my 3 minutes.
Thank you so very much, and thanks to all your group for this great summary. And
the group as well.
While you were talking, there was somebody inspired in the chat who said, what will you do differently after this NEB conference? And I would really like to know from you, and maybe it's so inspiring, your summaries, what will you do differently individually as audience? Maybe you can put it in the chat. What is your change that you as your participation, what will you do differently from tomorrow? I think this is a very interesting question. And thanking you, Eugen, I hand over to lab number 9 to Klaus Thüriedl and Anna Betancourt, and they deep dive into the question, what is sustainability?
Thank you very much. I will start very quickly, and then my colleague Klaus will fill in. I share with you. We had the concept, the notion of what is sustainability, and we had a range of stakeholders from academics to professionals to students. It was a very good session, and what we we had many thoughts and questions. We also had a Mentimeter to address the issue whether it was important to have a common understanding of sustainability. What can be said is that, sustainability as a definition is contested between different stakeholders. It's something that needs to be negotiated. There are key challenges and ways forward. And this is something of the reflections and the key aspects that we arrived to in our session. So it's important to understand that we have different stakeholders and different perceptions, and how we can negotiate the key aspects and challenges to find a way forward.
And while underpinning is a basic core that we have to care for the environment, and crucial here was to connect questions of the environment to questions of human well-being. And here we mean social justice and so forth. We also arrived to some of other points and key aspects. We need a new terminology. We need more specificity in addressing challenges. We need to be less risk averse and experiment so that we can develop appropriate measures fast and at pace. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much.
And I pass over the word to my colleague Klaus, that maybe he wanted to fill in.
Thank you. There's only one thing to add, and the question was, do you think the successful implementation of the new European powers or Green Deal need a common understanding definition on sustainability? Yes, 75% said yes, we have to do, and what we found out is it's only one definition. For sure, we need a definition, maybe only one sentence, that we get all the people on board of the different society, even educational deprived persons, that they can themselves check their way of living, and they can check with that definition, they can check and have an answer on the last question, what will you change after that session? And on the other hand, we need many, many definitions in the different branches, social sustainability, materials, etc. So it's not done with only one definition. We need a very common sense, plain, simple definition. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot to do with technical guidelines and so on and so on. Thank you.
When you ask for one sentence, it reminds me of a moderation at the Futurium in Berlin, which is a museum for the futures. And there was one, I think it was a landscape architect, and he said, the city we want to develop, which is sustainable, is a good city for kids. And
I have a sentence for you if you want to hear it.
Yeah, just quickly.
A doing or a building is sustainable if it's useful for the next 3 generations. Useful means no disadvantage or damage. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thanks to your whole group. And saying that, we are heading over to lab number 10. It's Terebadia, and it's related to participatory practices.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so yes, participatory practices, yes, they are the key challenge for creating this inclusive, sustainable, and static context. So participation has been the topic of the discussion in the panel this morning with the cities. But we had also the feeling that participation needs to be re-signified, and we dedicated the session to what is the real influence of citizens' agency, the capacity of the participant, and affect real change, and the structures and institutions and policies we need for making this agency possible. So we discussed about open spaces where multidisciplinarity approaches and practices have a place and are inhabited by trust, equality, and ownership. And we discussed also about rooms for transversal dialogues between different agents to trigger this collective thinking and actions. We had 3 projects, Distributed Cities Laboratories from Madrid, Cultural and Creative Spaces and Cities from the ECF, European Cultural Foundation in Amsterdam, and the Sophia project from Greece. We were trying to answer questions that appeared in the debate. The first one was how to build links between these different areas and participants, and how can we provide infrastructures for collaboration between distance and different people working together in specific prototypes. Well, one answer, so diverse answer came up, but it was clear that bottom-up is not enough. There is a need to facilitate a platform that allows self-organization for building new communities of practices for experimenting together. So we need teams of facilitators for creating these communities. The communities of practices and collective research and prototyping is important to find a balance between how we decide to live together and build knowledge around it. So, and in this sense, the cultural field is perfect for experimentation in every context. So it is also good for connecting diverse fields of knowledge and experience because this is the best experimentation place for other fields. Another question was how to make sure that co-learning in the community will sustain rather than it will be a one-off event. So it was clear that we need more stable and long-term processes and not only hackathons. In the sense, culture, again, there is no need to have quick solutions to problems, because it is a place to ask the question, make meaningful efficiency. So another question was, what can or should be the role of the architects and urban planners in these kinds of participatory processes? And a clear answer coming from an architect was that architects need to develop social skills and facilitator skills to acknowledge the importance of participatory practices. There is a need to re-educate architects and make them open up. Other comments, so there were more general comments on the initiative on the New European Bauhaus. The New European Bauhaus should reconsider the way architecture is privileged in the old structure to decrease the hierarchy of these disciplines. That we need to figure out different ways to partnership and cooperation, and that this has to be built. And that the New European Bauhaus is a nice initiative because it's open to be designed collectively. But however, it's a more clear proposal would be good. And then we need to clarify the form of collaboration and methodologies. The time is too short, and it's more about facilitation and funding, especially from the institutions. And we need to connect and focus on the network more than the events. More than the specific events. So, and in the background of the discussion, yes, I'm just answering the question that you're going to post me afterwards on inclusiveness, sustainability, and aesthetics. Regarding inclusiveness, it's clear that we need to go beyond tokenism. Regarding sustainability, it was clear that tools and infrastructure for enabling self-organization and governance of ownership is important. And regarding aesthetics, we're considering this as much wider concept than beauty. Aesthetic is not only something to possess, not to define identities and beauty standards, but to extend capacities and capabilities, including the sensitive ones. And this is heavily linked to the way we construct the media and the.
Thank you very much. Sorry for ringing. Thank you very much. May I thank you. Listening to you, you said one thing. You said solutions are not quick to be gotten or something like that. So and there's an image yesterday from the student NEB initiative. Maybe Janja, you can put it in the chat, because there was a bridge built in India over 50 years from all the civic society, from the citizens living there, and the people won't even realize when the bridge is fulfilled in their lifespan. So maybe we can put this one photo, I think it's open source, we can put it in the chat, because it's all made from rural and local crafts and resources. So it just reminded me of this yesterday gathering. And saying that, thank you very much. At lab number 10, we come to the last lab, Michel B., which was the question of participatory design in cultural third spaces for community and citizens.
Yes, I will speak in French since I'm faster. I will make profit of this possibility.
And for
everyone has the possibility to
just quickly, for the ones who
Alors, je vais parler en français. Pardon, Andrea?
Really quickly.
So I'll speak French.
Who have not been there, there's a translation button at the very right of your site. Please plug it, and then it will be retranslated into English.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, on commence
Thank you very much. So let's start for a few minutes. I'll share my screen to show you that work that we did. This is our visual artist, Jörg. And the discussion was really very lively. There were 3 members of the Trans-European Network who presented their case. Of course, architects also, but not only. We had students also, teachers, artists, pharmacists also. So we started with questions about what makes that people are privileged in terms of education, and how can this be useful for the Bauhaus movement. We didn't give answers, but asked more questions, of course. So we asked ourselves, how is it possible to have such projects that have a social impact. So what does that impact do for education and architecture and ownership, which we discussed already in other labs, and sense of property? This is public good, but when you build collectively, the collectivity feels some kind of ownership, not in a classical way. So how is it possible to build such a participative process? Also in terms of legislation, there are questions, and maybe we should contribute to that kind of approaches. And the question that we asked ourselves, it's interesting when someone said we should finally accept emptiness, void. Architects know that building is not only about a building, it's also everything around it, and also you have to accept that there is some kind of legal void. You also have Jules Clément, gardener. You have to give in decision its own rights. And excuse me, the microphone is sometimes off. If these places are open places for participation, it is because they are not quite organized. Decisions are not made yet, and there's a lot of work to be done by people who are working there so that processes can start without ending in chaos. And as Jules Clément said, diversity should be welcome. And like biological invention for the future, this is to welcome diversity also from humans, and this openness makes it possible for these places to be social, political laboratories for the future. And this is because these places are open. Yes, I'm almost done. These are open for risk, and given the fact that they are open for risk, they are more resilient than others, as they are open for something which is unexpected. They are also more diverse, and people can go and live there if they want, which make that more beautiful. And the final message for European Bauhaus would be to accept uncertainty, not to decide everything and not to plan for everything, because everything we heard shows us that it is possible. Thank you very much.
Sorry, my video. I like the uncertainty as a resource. So this draws back the line to Stina this morning. Thank you so very much for this incredible contribution and for the drawing. Whoever did it, maybe it was even collaborative. Thank you very much for that, for this last lab. So this is incredible what hundreds of people can organize and facilitate and creativity and spirit within these little amounts of time, 90 minutes. Thank you all very, very much. We have, let's say, 6 minutes to go until the next step. I have 3 questions in my mind, and I already said it earlier to when Georg was resuming. I have 3 questions. Please select one you would like to answer and feel free to jump in and unmute yourself. First is the importance of public procurement. Yeah, what can the NEB do to foster that this will change? First question. Second question is affordability. What is absolutely necessary to guarantee that affordability stays one of the core values if we address the other ones? And I have a third question, final question of the day. What, amongst all your discussions, is what has been the most important outcome out of the transformational power and risk and crisis through COVID? So these are three main questions at the end of the day I have, and maybe you want to resonate to one of them in the last minutes. So just pop in, whoever wants, as a rapporteur, what was discussed among these three questions in your group. Anybody who wants
procurement. I'd like to say something.
Yeah, please, you go.
But still, I want also to say something to Michele B.
Please, go ahead.
I like this, les espaces vides, I like this very much. In German, we have a term which is called Städten. And this is what we have had as kids in the cities. There were places and plots which were not in use, which were overgrown by weed, which were not treated. And this is also a value which vanishes, because nowadays we try to make everything perfect. Let's be less perfect in this respect. So procurement, I mean, I have just two core messages. Public procurement should be always based on quality. Only quality-based selection procedures for intellectual services. If you do any intellectual service, the characteristic of that is you cannot describe the result in beforehand. You can describe a brick, you can describe concrete very precisely, and you know what you get. Then you can ask for the price. Our services, you cannot describe the result. You don't know it. It comes out during the work. So only quality-based selections and no price fights. That's the main core message.
Okay, thank you very much, Georg. Anybody else who wants to jump onto these final questions? Karin, I think you raised your hand. I see you in the frame.
Thank you. Affordable, you said. We are convinced that you're affordable when you're contextual. This means do landscape architect project or any type of design project as a local. This means use materials you can find on the site and not introduce projects who come from far away. And the other way is to be affordable, is obviously do it with the locals, because they are going to receive the project. And if you have designed this with them, you have been the facilitator, the enabler, they take always over the project and will not change it or leave it or spoil it if it has been done with them. So this is also a way of being affordable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karin. And I think, Roberto, you want to resonate on that?
Just very quickly on affordability, also from the point of view of education, we were talking about this life-wide learning and inclusive education that can be opened up also to non-professional. And I think we should do that all the time or very often, and not only when there is an urgency to involve people in certain areas. I mean, that we have a lot of experience in doing that all over the field, but actually should be a common practice of hearing everybody board, also through educational activities, joining professionals and institutions together. That should become a common practice. It would be nice if we could do that in a number of years, just like that.
Now we get all these hands popping up. I try to make it in order. Klaus, Jörn, Clarissa, quickly, then we go to Ben, and I think then I have to cut. Okay, Klaus, you go first.
Yes, public procurement is easy. We have next revision of the directive in 2024. And here we should be successful to implement life cycle costs in that procurement law. And then we have a big step done.
Okay, thank you. Jörn, you go next.
Just a response to affordability again. I think we should really applaud and salute the political courage which is shown with this initiative, because it is about political courage. We need to distribute resources, because distribution of resources is distribution of power. And I think the initiative from the Commission and von der Leyen and in all is must be applauded and must be saluted, because it is very much about political courage.
Thank you very much for sharing this thought. Then I have seen you. Where are you now? I lost them now. From Vorarlberg, where are you?
Yes, Anna.
I don't see you anymore. Yeah, okay, Anna, here you go.
We need courage, and we also need a framework. And especially with affordability, it can't be that it is a luxury to build with earth, and it is cheap to build with concrete. There we definitely need more reform in the truthful kind of cost calculation of all materials. And we need carbon taxes that kind of regulate this impact that materials have on the environment, because it can't, in the most common sense logic to build sustainable is always using the local potentials, using the crafts, and that this is a luxury in Europe is just not okay, and we have to change the situation.
I hear this internalizing the external costs on a long time span for more generations, not only now. Thank you very much. Two last, Ben and Angel, and then we have to cut.
Well, I was going to say the same thing as the previous speaker and just say that affordability, I really like the word affordability, but we need to understand it through ecosystems economics and understand the cost of things from an ecological point of view. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And then we have Angel for your not last thought, but
it would be a very big honor.
No.
Summarize everything.
No, not last word, but a thought, yeah.
Yeah, so affordability is also a matter of expectations. So it depends on what you want to achieve, how much it's going to cost. And what we notice now in the domain of sustainability is that people want to have more that's sustainable at the same time, but that's not possible. That's contradicting with each other. So we have to also think in small is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all very much. Thank you for this speed dating of thoughts at the very end. Time is really fleeting today. What I would like you all, really, thanks to all contributions and all workshops, is now Janja to put Menti again on board, because we distilled your word cloud or the contributions of the word cloud into some columns. We pulled out the 10 most important words. And we would like to know from you, go on menti.com, please, use the code, as already mentioned, 25422178. If you had to extract 3 words, only please vote on 3 words. What do you expect from the new European Bauhaus? Which are the key factors? So that would be let's take a minute for that. Change, collaboration, holistic approach, innovation, inspiration, landscape architecture, quality, sustainability, togetherness. There's a lot behind each word. We know that. We can't define them now in depth. But it would be nice. You have to go on menti.com, use the code, and then we reorganize the results. I give it some seconds and we can see, because I would really like to react our next cherished speaker, who will come from the EU Commission's Joint Research Center to maybe resonate on what you see. So therefore we take some time to see how the audience votes. And it's very interesting what comes. Holistic approach is very much valued. Innovation also. Sustainability is very high. So it's, of course, if we talk about landscape architectures, this also pays into sustainability, etc. So it's a bit tricky now. But it's very interesting that your key, no, not the winner, but the holistic approach, that the intertwining of the different faculties and thought areas and academics and societies, etc. So that might be interesting to resonate on. I leave it like that. We can also, at a certain time, we have now more than 100 people voting. At a certain time, we can make a photo and put it in the chat. And I would now want to hand over the stage. Thank you all very much. This was the almost last moment of contribution from our dear audience today. I want to hand over the microphone for the next 10 minutes to Xavier TROUSSARD. He's the head of unit in charge of the new European Bauhaus at the EU Commission's Joint Research Center. We are very, very happy to have you here. And we are very much looking to your feedback. Thank you very much for sharing this slide. And now I hand over the stage to Xavier TROUSSARD.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm impressed. I'm impressed by the number and diversity of people connected to this event today, but even more impressed by what I just been listening to, looking at the reports you brought together. I mean, it is for me one of the best example of what should be happening a bit everywhere through the design phase of the new European BAUs. I mean, one of the last representative for a panel highlighted the importance of undecided places to be laboratories for the future. And for once, the Commission did not come with a fully fledged project for people to react to, but an invitation to put some flesh on the bone. So we have played a bit, taken the risk of keeping part of the concept undecided. And I see that you're responding very generously in helping us digging into the various dimensions of the triangle of values of the European BAUs, looking at what it may mean, and looking also at what it may need, in fact. When I and you do that also in a transdisciplinary way, which is already implementing one of the dimensions that we want to promote through this initiative. So there's certainly a lot to be harvested and to be shared, and that would be a very rich contribution to our design phase and to sense making. And also that you've based your reflection on experience, so you've been looking at concrete projects, and I think that's also what we wanted to have, something which is not just a sharing of opinions, but something which is radicated in the experience. And not surprisingly, among the things I've been hearing this afternoon from you, I see things that echo strongly things that we are currently analyzing. We have collected more than 1,000 entries in our SenseMaker on the website. And there are a few things that resonate very strongly with what we have heard. Your strong focus on the local and the small scale, I think it's something which is coming very strongly, including what it means in terms of sense of the place and meaning for people, but also the underlying economics, looking at for example, the material and the cycles that are there. I think that you're questioning also of the overall equation of the changes that are needed around the concept of affordability, and the last exchange, for example, on how we have to look at different types of costs also in the public procurement, is something which is showing that we need to dig deeper into the underlying economics of the European BAUs, and this is something which is starting to appear also. Other dimensions, the revisiting of the relationship between rural and urban is also something which is appearing very strongly. The idea also of reusing buildings, but also reusing spaces. So I liked a lot the reflections around over can be put to good use and create new public places, public spaces. That's also very important. Nature-based solutions and the economics that goes with it is also something which is coming very strongly. And all the questions related to participation, governance, and what is needed in terms of making the collaboration, the co-creation working, is something which is coming also very strongly. So it's very, I mean, it was so rich that it's very difficult for me to react to all what you have been putting together. So I think first that you should not only share with us, I would say, the summary conclusions, which will certainly be useful, but I see that a lot of the workshops have created some very rich maps, and so this can also be shared, and we're really happy to look into the details of your thinking. We're happy also to see that there are some very concrete ideas that have been put forward, and so that's also interesting for us to consider potential areas of solutions or where we can bring an added value. So I will stop here, Andrea, and then.
Great. But listening to you, if wishful thinking was okay at the end of this very day, what would you wish from the participants in this realm that we are sitting and working together today? What do you wish that the whole initiative could really flourish, fly, and really infect as a positive virus other stakeholders, people, citizens, etc.? What do you wish from us, or what do you hope?
Yeah, I think you asked at a certain point, or you took from the chat, I think, a question which is the crucial one. If you have the ambition to build a movement, is what will you do differently tomorrow? And I think that's the point. And that what was also a very good surprise is, you know, when normally the Commission is engaging with stakeholders on a new initiative, you have a ranking of the demands, and very often the EU is looked at a banking system or a cash point, and so the first demand which comes is give us more money and we'll make it happen. This time, this is very interesting because in what we collect in the 1,000 entries, we always ask, what would you need to make your things happen? Mm-hmm. And money is not coming first. What is coming first is network, is recognition, is knowledge. And so we see emerging a community that wishes to take its responsibility and to change the way it works, the change it engages with other actors. There are some needs. We have to clarify what are the needs and how we can help this to happen. Mm-hmm. But I think the ambition would be that each actor starts to do a number of things differently to make change happen, basically.
Okay, and then I have a last two questions very quickly to you. One is to you, and the second one is also to the audience in the chat. First question is, what will you do differently after this conference tomorrow? Because tomorrow is Saturday. Tomorrow is Friday.
I don't know whether this is different, but there's certainly a number of points that I'm going to discuss in depth with a few colleagues from other services in the Commission around, for example, the very concrete points on...
That's a very political answer. I leave it there.
That's clear.
I leave it there. Second question. It was said earlier, shall we put principle over rules over standards to really foster the NEB? Principles, rules, or standards? What do you think? And this is a question to the audience too. What do you think? What is core?
Well, we probably need the three, which is the easy answer. I think number of principles are very important to create the unity around the concept, which is a shared concept. But then at times rules and standards will be needed as fundamental tools to support the change. But we first, at the conceptual level, need to agree on a number of principles. And I've heard that, for example, the concept of sustainability needs some definition, some negotiation. I've heard also that the concept of affordability needs the same in a way. So we need to be aligned, and that's this co-design that we are doing together.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your time and for your great insights at the end of the very day. We are really looking forward to the near and the longer future of the whole process. And I'm now happy to hand over for the closing remarks to Barbara GESSLER. She's the head of Unit Creative Europe, Directorate General for Education and Culture at the European Commission, and to Marcos Ros SEMPERE, then member of the European Parliament in Spain, initiator of the Parliament's new European Bauhaus Friendship Group. So I think Barbara is going to take the floor first. So we are very much looking forward to your input now and your closing remarks.
Thank you, Andrea. I'm sorry I was imposing myself via video earlier. I didn't mean to be intruding on Xavier's remarks. Just very quickly from my side, also a couple of points, as I could not unfortunately attend the whole day, although from what I hear now, it would have been absolutely intriguing, and my colleagues will will brief me on what was the gist of the day. I would first of all, of course, also like to say thank you very much to the whole of the NEB collective for organizing such an engaging and cross-disciplinary event, fully in line with, as Xavier has also just highlighted, the cross-sectorial approach of this movement. And as head of unit Creative Europe Culture, I'm of course particularly happy to see a number of Creative Europe supported networks in this collective, such as ACE or Europa Nostra, Culture Action Europe, Trans-Europal, but also non-cultural organizations who are involved in some of our other activities, such as the European Association for Architectural Education, who is also a partner in our Young Talent Architecture Award. The NEB is also can be considered also as the outcome of a number of projects and processes in the cultural policy area that have evolved and converged to take our concerns for quality architecture, heritage, and sustainable development to the highest EU level. Of course, this includes the European Year of Cultural Heritage 2018, the EU Mies Award that we are giving out, the Davos process, and the Member States Expert Group on High Quality Architecture that is now currently working on its final report, to mention only a few very specific initiatives. And in this context, I would like to highlight the role of the Architects Council of Europe, who has really reinforced the cultural dimension of its activities with our support over the past years, from design competitions to the adaptive reuse of built heritage that you also just talked about, and quality architecture. They have in a way prepared a common ground as a reference also, of course, to the title of this conference, not only for this conference, but more generally for a better recognition of culture's contribution to a sustainable and inclusive built quality environment. We are very grateful as a commission to have been able to accompany this process. And with its statement, making the Renovation Wave a cultural project, this collective has really been among the first to contribute to the new European Bauhaus. And since then, a lot of cultural organizations and creative professionals have shared their ideas and visions to make this a really truly cultural project, as called for by our president Ursula von der Leyen. So in that vein, of course, we have mobilized our stakeholders and encouraged them to participate. Participation was a big word you talked about also just earlier, and we will continue to do so as we see the role you can play and the transformational potential of culture in this challenging but very crucial project for Europe. I also saw that you had a panel with mayors this morning to discuss the local territorial dimension of the Renovation Wave and the NEB. With the Committee of the Regions, the JRC and RTD, we organized a similar exchange, just for your information, between Commissioners Gabriel and Ferreira and the mayors of the European Capitals of Culture and Innovation Capitals, and some very useful insights were shared on the contribution of creative and innovation ecosystems to sustainable and inclusive urban regeneration. And if you are interested, they will be also uploaded on the NEB website for everyone to see. Now, of course, you know, money is not everything, as Xavier rightly said, but sometimes it does help. That's why I would like to briefly say how, in more concrete terms, under Creative Europe, we will be able to contribute to supporting this process via our horizontal and sectorial actions. First of all, via the cultural cooperation projects, the networks and the platforms, because they're in line with the sustainability and the greening priority. Projects will have the possibility to contribute to the implementation of the new European Bauhaus, which means that future culture Creative Europe beneficiaries will also be able to include activities that are relevant to the new European Bauhaus in their program of activities. They will therefore be able to contribute to this cross-sectoral nature of the approach. And I understand you have been talking also about the notion of beauty and aesthetics that is an element of the new European Bauhaus. And of course, under Creative Europe, artistic creation will of course continue to be a major element of the projects that we will support. More specifically, also, we have under Creative Europe a new sectorial approach, and amongst them is also a sectorial approach to architecture. And there we have included an action line on the integration of the new European Bauhaus principle in architectural practices. And while this is likely, of course, to be the focal point for NEB-related actions, other sectorial approaches may also a little bit further in the future be open to such contributions, but maybe not exclusively, but amongst others, for example, in the area of design or cultural heritage. They've created a so-called cross-sectorial strand that we share together with the media strand, the audiovisual part, which is called the New Creative Innovation Labs. And even more so in the future, we hope that this will also allow a focus on the greening of the value chain across the cultural and creative sectors, and therefore also it will be possible to include actions that contribute to the NEB. So I hope I gave you some elements of how we can support you as you are supporting us. And I would like to leave it at that at this stage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, and I want to give a big thanks to back to the program Creative Europe, because without you and without this great support, this day and this process wouldn't have been possible. So thank you for facilitating that it was possible to come together in that way. But I have a very last question to you, if I may. In the chat, somebody said, "Yeah, we have to bring the private developers in." I just quoted. Yeah, this is very important to also put them into the process because they have a responsibility. The question I have brings me back to Cluj this morning and the incredible presentations of the municipalities and cities at the roundtable. There was a lot saying about the courage we need in politics. And I come from a country, Germany, where I don't see so much courage in the moment, I must confess. I don't want to go deep dive in there, but I lack it, I think, me personally. How do we get more courage in politics, bringing NEB through?
Well, I mean, that's a broad.
But it's a really.
No, yeah. I mean, I would personally
resonating on that question.
I would personally say, and I hope if Xavier is still there, he will probably say that this is true. I think our Commission President has really made proof of her political courage to launch the European Bauhaus, because this is something that eventually will bring together a bold vision that she has developed, but making very clear that it cannot function, of course, without the participation and the bottom-up contribution. So I think there the Commission has been very instrumental already in launching this initiative. On the other hand, we will now hear, of course, from the member of the European Parliament. But I can say that from the discussion we had 2 weeks ago with the mayors of the both capital initiatives and also from the Committee of the Regions, that there is a strong awareness and willingness to take on this endeavor and embark together on this adventure. Frankly, I have never seen such a willingness to really act, and I think this is it's a beautiful project around which we can gather those from politics that want to contribute in a positive way in this.
Barbara, thank you so very much for for this answer and your thoughts. And I hand over to the last speaker of this day. I already introduced you. It's still Marcos Ros Sempere, member of the European Parliament in Spain and initiator of the New European Bauhaus Friendship Group. And I hope you are out there. I haven't seen you yet, but I guess we just transfer the microphone and the video to you in a second. I hope
yes.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Andrea, for giving me the floor, and great thanks also to Architects Council of Europe for inviting me to give some final remarks in this event to this important initiative that we are addressing today, the new European Bauhaus. Sorry you so something strange because I am in the middle of an airport, in the middle of two different flights, and I am in this situation now. But it is an enormous honor for me to be speaking on this panel today, not only as a member of the European Parliament, but also as architect and urban planning full professor and founder of the New European Bauhaus Friendship Group, a group of members interested in this initiative who have decided to join forces to raise the voice of the European Parliament in this project, representing all political groups and 15 member states. So along all my career and my political activity, I have represented, tried to put architecture, urbanism and design at the center of the European Union's policies. This new European Bauhaus comes at a crucial moment for Europe, a time of transition towards economic recovery, Green Deal, digitalization, and social cohesion. And I am a firm believer that architecture can unite all these concepts and put itself at the service of citizens to fully improve their quality of life. This is why it's essential that the new European Bauhaus should be constituted as preliminary phase to the renovation wave of buildings. It can provide a timely opportunity to harness the quality, innovation, and creativity of our architects and designers to rethink and reimagine our cities, our neighborhoods, our buildings, and even our way of life towards a more stimulating and sustainable future. The new European Bauhaus initiative will soon begin its implementation through 5 pilot projects financed by 25 million from the structural funds that will serve to improve both the spaces and the cities we live in, as well as the environment that surrounds them. But we should not limit it to that. We should support all viable projects since and economic expense. So this is the reason because we as members are asking the Commission not to limit 5 pilot projects. If there are 25, 35 viable and wonderful pilot projects, let's finance all of them in the first year, please. From our group, we are proposing to establish to obtain part of the funds from the recovery and resilience facility allocated to the renovation wave to justify the connection between the two programs. We have to link renovation wave funds and they have to be conditioned to the implementation of Bauhaus solutions and proposals, because we cannot allow all the major investment in building renovation to end after changing the air conditioning or putting in solar panels. We need a real transformation of our built environment. Architecture can change our lives, but only good architecture can improve our lives. This new European Bauhaus aims to make places in Europe more sustainable, beautiful, and inclusive. This triple premise is ideal, and it does not renounce any of the characteristics that any architectural or urban space should achieve. Through global outreach, we must make changes in several directions to achieve transformation in our places. What is more essential in this project is promoting sustainable living conditions by changing the course of the neoliberal bubble, so that benefits go primarily to citizens and do not go mainly to companies. We need to change this paradigm. These changes will be done through massive quality job creation in the building and restoration sector, as well as the cultural sector and creative sectors. It will also spend citizens' active involvement in projects, design and development, quality of life improvements, and major energy savings, paying particular attention to accessibility and.
And I think now we lost you. You had a big applause in the chat for your speak. I think we really lost you now due to connection. Maybe it's on my side, but I think I'm connected via cable. So it's only possible for me to say, Marcos, thank you so much for sharing these thoughts and for spreading again courage to the whole movement. I would like to have asked the question to you, how to become a member of the friendship group. I leave that question now because you're not there anymore. Thank you for sharing with that. I thank you all. We are at the end of the day. This is in punct. It's 15:59, so we did it in time. I thank you all very much for your great contributions. I think this experiment was a great journey to show that we need more bottom up with diverse voices from all genres and areas and generations and so on. So I'm very thankful for the trust that I could join you in this journey. It will go on. All the outcomes today, not only that you will see it on the ACE website, you can see again the videos, etc. Everything that was recorded will be brought on the website, videos and reports. If you want to share any kind of slides or anything like that, put it on the chat. The chat will be saved to all these incredible remarks. Thanks again to the Creative Europe program. Yeah, and let's stay friendly and in the sense of friendship of a collective, sustainable, inclusive and aesthetic future. I thank you all so very much. It was an absolute delight to dive into your concerns, questions and the love for what you do, because I think the love is what unites us. So thank you all very much. Thank you, Team. You gave everything, Janja, all the people, Maria, I don't know, all the people behind. I don't want to name names because then I forget dozens of them. Thanks to everybody, Pierre, to make that possible, Julie, thanks to the whole team and the great tech behind, because we need smart technology in a very intelligent and convenient way. And I think this was it. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Have a nice afternoon, and let's get back together. Yeah, we will now address the Joint Research Center for the processes in the future. Thank you very much. They are nice. Thank you for all your nice reactions in the chat. You made my day. Thank you. Bye-bye. I think that was it. Wasn't it? Yes. Yeah, the birds. Pump them up, Nicola.